Tesla says they're saving the planet, but what if I told you they might be doing the exact opposite? Stick around because what I found is going to blow your mind. Look, we all know Tesla. Electric cars, solar panels, Elon Musk tweeting about Mars. The whole package screams, save the environment, right? For years, Tesla has positioned itself as the hero in the climate crisis story. They've built this massive brand around one simple idea: ditch fossil fuels, go electric, save Earth. Millions of people bought into this vision. Literally, they bought the cars, the stock, the dream. But here's the thing, when you start digging deeper into what's actually happening behind the scenes, the picture gets way more complicated than what Tesla wants you to see. So here's where things get interesting. Tesla has always marketed itself as this pure, clean energy company. Their mission statement literally says they exist to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Sounds amazing, right? But there's a huge gap between what they promise and what's actually happening, and nobody's really talking about it. The problem starts with something most people don't even think about: batteries. Yeah, those massive battery packs that power every single Tesla vehicle. Everyone sees an electric car and thinks zero emissions, problem solved. But that's only half the story. Actually, it's not even half. The real story begins way before that car ever hits the road. To make one Tesla battery, you need lithium, cobalt, nickel, and a bunch of other rare materials. And getting these materials out of the ground, it's absolutely brutal for the environment. We're talking about massive mining operations that destroy entire ecosystems. In places like the Atacama Desert in Chile, lithium mining, it's draining the region dry. Local communities are running out of water because these mining operations use millions of gallons every single day. The desert is literally dying so we can have electric cars. But it gets worse. Cobalt mining in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been linked to child labor and horrific working conditions. Tesla has tried to reduce cobalt use in their batteries, sure, but they haven't eliminated it completely. And even if they did, that doesn't solve the fundamental problem. These materials have to come from somewhere. The mining process creates toxic waste, pollutes water sources, and displaces communities who've lived on that land for generations. Now, let's talk about the factories. Tesla's Gigafactories are enormous. The one in Nevada is one of the largest buildings in the world by footprint building, something that massive, requires insane amounts of concrete and steel. Both of those materials have huge carbon footprints, and once the factory is built, it needs power tons of it. While Tesla claims they're working toward renewable energy for their facilities, the reality is that most of their factories still pull a significant amount of power from the grid, and depending on where that factory is located, the grid might be running on coal or natural gas. Tesla's factory in Shanghai, for example, is in a country where over half the electricity still comes from coal. So even though they're building green cars, the manufacturing process is being powered by one of the dirtiest energy sources on the planet. That's not exactly the clean future they promised, is it? But wait, there's more. Let's talk about what happens to these cars after they're built. Transportation and logistics. Tesla doesn't just sell cars in California. They ship vehicles all over the world. And how do you think those cars get from the factory to the dealership? Giant cargo ships and trucks. Most cargo ships run on bunker fuel, which is basically the dirtiest, cheapest petroleum product available. Moving thousands of vehicles across oceans creates a massive carbon footprint that nobody includes when they talk about how clean electric vehicles are. Then there's the issue of the power grid itself. When you plug in your Tesla at home, where do you think that electricity comes from? In many parts of the United States, it's still coming from fossil fuels natural gas plants, coal plants, you name it. So you might feel good about not burning gas in your car, but the electricity charging your battery might be coming from a power plant that's pumping CO2 into the atmosphere. Tesla knows this, they've always known this, but they don't exactly advertise it. And some studies have shown that in regions where the power grid is particularly dirty, driving a gas-powered car might actually produce less total emissions than driving an electric vehicle. Think about that for a second. The whole point of buying a Tesla is to reduce your carbon footprint, but depending on where you live, you might actually be making things worse. Tesla doesn't want you thinking about this stuff. They want you focused on the sleek design, the instant acceleration, the cool tech features, not the dirty coal plant powering your zero emission vehicle. Now let's address something that Tesla fans really don't like talking about: electronic waste. Those batteries I mentioned earlier, they don't last forever. After about 8 to 10 years, the battery pack in your Tesla starts to degrade. Performance drops, range decreases. Eventually, you need a replacement. And what happens to the old battery? Well, recycling lithium-ion batteries is complicated and expensive. Most of them end up in landfills or get shipped to developing countries where they're dismantled in unsafe conditions. Tesla says they're working on battery recycling programs, and to their credit, they've made some progress. But the scale of the problem is enormous. We're talking about millions of electric vehicles hitting the road in the coming years. That means millions of massive battery packs that will eventually need to be disposed of. The infrastructure to handle that kind of waste simply doesn't exist yet, and building it will take decades and billions of dollars. Here's another thing: Tesla's solar division. Remember when they acquired Solar City back in 2016? The idea was to create this integrated clean energy ecosystem: solar panels on your roof, a Powerwall battery in your garage, a Tesla in your driveway, all powered by the sun. Sounds perfect. But the solar business has been struggling. Installation numbers have been declining. There have been reports of solar panels catching fire. Lawsuits from customers, and the whole division has been kind of a mess. And even when the solar panels work properly, there's still the question of manufacturing. Making solar panels requires mining silicon, which comes with its own environmental costs. The production process uses toxic chemicals. And just like batteries, solar panels eventually wear out and need to be replaced. Recycling them is difficult and expensive. So once again, we're back to the same pattern. The promise of clean energy comes with a whole lot of dirty reality attached to it. But here's the real kicker. The thing that made me realize just how deep this goes: Tesla's carbon credit business. This is something most people have no idea about, but it's absolutely wild, basically. Governments have regulations that require car companies to produce a certain number of zero-emission vehicles. If a company doesn't meet that requirement, they have to buy carbon credits from companies that exceeded. And guess who's been selling billions of dollars worth of carbon credits? That's right, Tesla. For years, Tesla wasn't making money from selling cars. They were making money from selling these credits to other car companies. Companies like Fiat Chrysler and General Motors were literally paying Tesla so they could keep selling gas-guzzling SUVs and trucks. In 2020, Tesla made over $1.5 billion just from selling regulatory credits. Without that money, they wouldn't have been profitable. So think about what that actually means. Tesla's business model has relied on other companies continuing to produce polluting vehicles. They needed those companies to keep making gas cars so they could sell them credits. The worse those companies were for the environment, the more valuable Tesla's credits became. That's not fighting climate change, that's profiting from it. And this brings us to Elon Musk himself. The guy has become almost inseparable from the Tesla brand. He's got over 170 million followers on social media. Everything he says moves markets. He's built this image as a visionary trying to save humanity, but his actions don't always match his words. He's promoted cryptocurrency, which has an enormous environmental footprint. Due to the energy required for mining, he's fought against unions and worker protections. He's made statements downplaying the severity of climate change. There was a moment during the pandemic when Musk fought tooth and nail to keep Tesla's factories open, even when public health officials said it wasn't safe. He called lockdowns fascist. He spread misinformation, all because he didn't want production to slow down. That doesn't sound like someone who's putting the planet first. That sounds like someone who's putting profits first. Look, here's the bottom line. Tesla isn't the villain in the story, but they're not the hero either. They're a company, a massive, profitable company that's really good at marketing. They've convinced millions of people that buying their products is the same as saving the planet. And yeah, electric vehicles are probably better than gas cars in the long run, but they're not the perfect solution Tesla wants you to believe they are. The real issue is that we've been sold this idea that we can consume our way out of the climate crisis, buy an electric car, install solar panels, get a power wall, and everything will be fine. But that's not how it works. Yeah, every product, no matter how green it claims to be, comes with environmental costs, mining, manufacturing, transportation, disposal. It all adds up. And companies like Tesla benefit when we don't ask too many questions about those costs. The clean future Tesla promised isn't a lie exactly. It's more like a half-truth. A carefully crafted story that leaves out all the inconvenient parts. The mining operations destroying ecosystems, the factories powered by fossil fuels, the waste problem nobody wants to deal with, the business model that profits from other companies polluting, all of that gets swept under the rug while Tesla takes credit for saving the world. And maybe that's the scariest part. If Tesla, the company that's supposed to be leading the charge towards sustainability, is cutting corners and hiding uncomfortable truths, what does that say about everyone else? What does that say about our chances of actually solving this crisis? I'm not saying don't buy a Tesla. I'm not saying electric vehicles are bad. What I'm saying is that we need to be honest about what's really happening. We need to demand more from companies that claim to care about the environment. We need better regulations, better recycling infrastructure, better oversight of mining operations, and we need to stop pretending that buying stuff, no matter how eco-friendly it's marketed, is going to save us. The clean future we were promised isn't going to come from Tesla or any other corporation. It's going to come from systemic change, from holding companies accountable, from investing in public transportation, from redesigning our cities so people don't need to drive everywhere, from moving away from a culture of endless consumption. That's not as sexy as a new electric sports car, but it's the truth. Tesla changed the auto industry. They proved electric vehicles could be cool and desirable. That's legitimately impressive, but they also showed us how easy it is to sell people a dream while profiting from the status quo. And until we start seeing through that game, nothing's really going to change. Hit subscribe because there's way more to uncover.